Good evening and welcome to my week 4 presentation. This week we'll discuss financial solvency analysis as it relates to the city of Burbank. As a quick overview, we'll discuss the City of Burbank's fiscal year 22-23 annual comprehensive financial report, briefly go over the MD&A and economic drivers for the city, a few different solvency ratios, including the operating ratio, the current ratio, long-term liability ratio, make a note about changes in net position and fund balance towards the end, and of course, talk about budget to actual differences really briefly. The City of Burbank is a full-service charter city with police, fire, street maintenance, and various enterprise activities such as water, sewer, and electric. All to say it has a lot of financial transactions that go in and out of the city. The City of Burbank's economic environment is showing a lot of strength and continued growth. And when we talk about financial solvency, there are a lot of different things that we can take a look at. And one area in the beginning of an ACFR that we can take a look at is the MD&A. And right here pictured on this slide is the City of Burbank's MD&A. And within the first couple paragraphs, you can see a lot of the financial highlights of the city. One area we can take a look at is the city's unrestricted fund balance. Highlighted here in the intro of the MD&A shows that the city has an unassigned fund balance of $110,680,000. The figures presented in the City of Burbank's ACFR are in thousands format, so that's one thing to keep in mind as we go through the analysis. In addition to this unassigned fund balance, we can also quickly take a look at this pie chart, also included in the MD&A, which shows the revenue makeup of the city. You'll see that close to 50% of the revenues that the city collects is in sales tax and property taxes, with the median home prices being $1.25 million. I don't think that the City of Burbank is at risk of losing such a sizable portion of their revenue streams. So as we head into the MD&A, just the first couple of paragraphs really do highlight the fact that the City of Burbank is in good financial standing. But of course, we don't stop there. We'll take a look at a few financial solvency ratios. The first financial solvency ratio that we can take a look at is the operating ratio, which is a budget solvency ratio that compares the city's total revenues to its total expenses. For both the city's governmental activities and business type activities for fiscal year 22-23, the total revenues is $645,397,000 and the total expenses is $605,597,000, which yields a ratio of 1.07. The target ratio for your operating ratio is anything over 1.0. This means that your revenues that you collect exceeds the expenses that you have spent. The next ratio that we'll analyze is called the current ratio, and the current ratio compares your current assets against current liabilities. For the City of Burbank for fiscal year 22-23, current assets was $893,218,000, and the current liabilities is $105,320,000. You want this ratio to be higher. The higher, the better, which means that you have more assets, more current assets to cover your current liabilities. A lot of different types of assets fold into current assets. It doesn't just include cash. For example, it includes inventories and receivables. But this type of ratio provides a quick snapshot of how a city's most liquid assets can cover its most current liabilities. The next ratio that we'll take a look at is the long-term liability ratio. This is a solvency ratio that provides a snapshot of the long-term liability obligations of a city against its total assets. The city has long-term liabilities of $773,585,000 against its total assets of $2,095,922,000. This yields a ratio or a percentage of 37%, and in this case, we want this percent to be lower. The lower the better. In fact, less than 40% would be ideal. One factor that I did want to point out is that long-term liabilities, although it is an obligation, can be broken down into the different types of liabilities. The second snapshot, the smaller of the two here, shows a quick breakdown of a few of the long-term liabilities of the city. Of note, a few GASB changes did implement the lease payable and subscriptions payable line items, so that's one thing to consider. Sometimes accounting changes and accounting standards updates will change this number. In addition to solvency ratios, we can take a look at an ACFR's statistical section. There are a lot of metrics and factors that we can really take a look at when analyzing an ACFR. So when we flip to the very back of the City of Burbank's ACFR document, we have the statistical section, and a couple of schedules here are pretty insightful, namely the changes in fund balance and the changes in net position for the city. These statistical schedules provide a 10-year snapshot of the City of Burbank's fund balance and net position. And as you can see, both schedules over time are trending upward. And this is another good indication outside of ratios that demonstrate the City of Burbank's financial solvency and fiscal health year over year. And lastly, how did the ACFR differ from the budget? The budget that I've been analyzing thus far is the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and the latest published ACFR is from two prior fiscal years, fiscal year 22-23. The City of Burbank is still currently finalizing their fiscal year 23-24 ACFR, and this is typical of cities that usually take about 6 months to issue an audited financial report after fiscal year end. So the best place to compare the budget to actual in this case is within the city's ACFR on page 22. So for fiscal year 22-23, the original budget projected a fund balance of $95.5 million versus the actual ending fund balance of $140.67 million. And as you can see, this was predominantly due to cost savings on the expense side. So those were just a few notes on the financial solvency ratios and analysis for the City of Burbank's fiscal year 22-23 annual comprehensive financial report. Again, there's a lot of different metrics and factors that we can take a look at, and these are just a few. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to your feedback.